one is another one from our patrons. What is the number one roadblock among college students that keeps them from accepting the gospel?
Sex. Next.
Next question.
Because they don't want it to be true.
Okay.
Look, I mean, the people out there who are watching, I ask people on college campuses all the time, if Christianity were true, would you become a Christian? An atheist will stand at the microphone and say no. And when I talk to them privately, they'll admit they don't want to live up to the sexual Christian ethic or the Christian sexual ethic. The elephant in the room in a college campus is not, the same thing is true on YouTube. Elephant in the room is not evidence, it's sex. People want to live the way they want to live, and they don't want anyone telling them or anyone else how they have to behave sexually, despite the fact that they still believe in certain sexual rules, right? You don't have sex with children, it has to be consent, so they still impose rules on it. But
so how do you address that? How do you go, like, for instance, when you're having a conversation with one of these college students and they reveal this to you, it's because I want to have sex with anyone I want to have sex with. Mm-hmm. How do you respond to that?
Thanks for being honest. At least you know where you stand. Okay.
And then you just sort of allow the Holy Spirit to
I mean, you can say, I always ask them, if it were true, would you become a Christian? When they say no, what else can you do? You can just say, well, God gives you the free will to do what you want to do, make the choices you want to make. That's why this is a moral universe, because we have free will and we can make these choices.
So how often does that happen, that they say that if it was true, they wouldn't believe it?
Oh, most
happens
of the time.
all the time. Really?
Yeah. I mean, there are some that'll say stuff like this, Cameron. They'll say,
see, I'm just really incredulous about that. Like, it seems weird that people would admit that. And maybe it's because we live in a sort of postmodern culture that doesn't care about truth.
Or they'll say it this way. If you ask them, if Christianity were true, would you become a Christian? They'll say, yeah, but you couldn't prove it.
Oh, yeah.
That kind of thing, which really means no.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah, you can't prove with 100% certainty.
Yeah. Okay. You can't prove atheism true with 100% certainty either, but you're claiming to be an atheist, so what's your...
Well, hey, wait a second, because atheism is just a lack of belief.
Oh, stop. Stop. I'm going to slap you.
Well, you could...
It's so silly.
Yeah, the lack of belief stuff I don't take very seriously.
Yeah. Well, I should. It's just the person's psychological state. So I lack a belief in materialism. Does that make materialism false necessarily? No. My psychological state doesn't tell me whether or not Christianity is true or false or atheism is true or false.
Yeah, see, to me, it screams of, I want to avoid any semblance of burden of proof.
That's right.
And that's my answer to that, is just let the other person do all the arguing, which everyone knows is a lot more difficult to do, to defend your position than to just, just express skepticism about it. You can do that about anything.
Sure.
And that's what Christians point out a lot, is that, like, if you really want to be a skeptic, then embrace solipsism. Embrace the idea that you're the only mind out there.
Why aren't you skeptical of skepticism?
Well, there you go. Actually,
the easiest way of dealing with it, just ask a person who says that they lack a belief, is just 3 questions, or just say this. Here are 3 positions. God exists, God doesn't exist, or I don't know. Which one are you closer to? Now, if they say, I don't know, you're an agnostic. If they say no, they're an atheist. If they say yes, they're a theist. Okay, done.
Yeah. It's also like just a semantic thing. Sure. That's what I like to do too, is just be like, okay, do you embrace this or not?
Yeah.
And if you don't, then that's fine.
What do you think is more likely? God does exist, doesn't exist, you don't know.
What I've actually suggested on a video that I recorded a little while ago was, there's 2 questions you can ask an atheist. One of them is, do you believe that God exists? And if they answer yes or no, well, if they're an atheist, they'll answer no. And then you can say, well, do you also believe in evidentialism, which is the idea that your beliefs ought to be proportioned to the evidence? And so if they answer no, they believe God does not exist, and they also believe that your beliefs ought to be proportioned to the evidence, ask them, well, what's your evidence that God doesn't exist? And usually, I think same kind of situation happens with a lot of Christians too, is that we're not really prepared to defend the things that we believe.
No.
And with an atheist, the same thing is going to happen. So if you ask that to an atheist, you're probably going to get the same kind of like blank stare.
And you see, that presupposes that this is a universe that is reasonable and has evidence. This is what I'm trying to do in the book Stealing from God, is pointing out that when atheists say they have reasons that there's no God, or that atheism's true, or materialism's true, or quantum vacuums, or whatever they want to say, they're actually stealing an orderly universe from God in order to say that God doesn't exist. They're stealing our ability to reason. Why should we be able to reason about things outside of our skulls if there's no God, if we're just molecular machines, if we're just moist robots? We shouldn't. But that's what they say we are. We're moist robots. So why should we believe anything they say?
You've got some one-liners that are just doozies.
Well,
moist robots.
That's what they are.
I don't know anyone else who uses that.
That's what they're claiming we are. We're moist robots.